Whispers are swirling that a single sharp remark from Steph Curry absolutely shattered Draymond Green's composure, allegedly sparking a violent brawl behind closed locker room doors. League executives are reportedly hovering over the ban button, contemplating a severe suspension for the explosive altercation. We are tearing down this entire spectacle today, tracing the toxic buildup to the devastating aftermath and uncovering Draymond's looming fate. The nightmare kicked off on March 1st, 2026, right in the middle of a chaotic pause in Golden State's matchup. The Los Angeles Lakers were absolutely dismantling them 129-101 inside Chase Center, when a broadcast lens snatched a moment that practically set the entire basketball community on fire. Sidelined by an aching knee, the legendary point guard sat inches away from his longtime enforcer during a huddle, while Draymond aggressively screamed at the struggling roster. For those who somehow missed that viral footage, let me paint the chaotic picture. Los Angeles was mercilessly destroying them, and true to form, Draymond was having an absolute meltdown on the sidelines. Flailing his arms and barking his signature fiery demands at the squad, he stood right next to a seated, quiet Steph. Steph offered absolutely nothing, no affirming nods, no spark, just cold, deadpan staring. That singular, lifeless gaze directed at his teammate instantly became an internet sensation. Full Court Pass tossed the clip onto X with nothing but a pair of looking eyeballs for a caption, and the digital world absolutely lost its mind. The algorithm worked its dark magic. Millions analyzed that emotionless stare, instantly concluding that the franchise icon had finally reached his breaking point with the controversial forward. Within mere hours, the footage racked up 7-figure watch counts, instantly locking a highly destructive storyline into place. Fans shouted that the sharpshooter was entirely drained, boldly declaring their legendary dynamic permanently shattered. Toxic whispers echoed around the league, suggesting a catastrophic, irreparable divide had poisoned their sanctuary. That haunting snapshot of a frozen-faced Steph beside an exploding teammate blanketed social media overnight. To truly grasp the tension, you have to understand the franchise's brutal reality right then. The superstar sniper was grounded by an agonizing joint problem, officially diagnosed as right patellofemoral pain syndrome. Stuck in casual attire, he had helplessly watched from the bench for 12 consecutive matchups without logging a single minute. Meanwhile, Los Angeles was mercilessly shredding his crew by 28 points. So the wounded king sits helplessly. Watching his roster get slaughtered while his oldest comrade screams into the void, that chilling empty stare is exactly what set the internet ablaze. Anyone breathing basketball oxygen knows the four-time champion carries a reputation as the most joyful, uplifting spirit to ever touch a court. Catching a beacon of positivity slumped in his chair radiating pure exhaustion, deep irritation, or straight-up contempt, that is front-page news. Naturally, the outspoken forward grabbed a mic for his podcast to tackle the wildfire surrounding his point guard's demeanor. My guy's reaction to me firing up the troops blew up the internet. I am catching all these comments claiming the chef is completely over my act, the veteran acknowledged, proving he was painfully plugged into the media circus. He scrolled through the vicious breakdowns, read every wild conspiracy, and decided to come out swinging. The defender furiously pushed back, blaming the grimace entirely on the horrific scoreboard. "Nobody is grinning when we are getting slaughtered out there," he barked, before flipping the script entirely on what that stare actually meant. Truth be told, looking back at that exact footage, and having a real conversation with my brother later, he was actually nodding along to my message, the loudmouth declared. If you buy his angle, the superstar wasn't plotting an exit strategy or rolling his eyes. From his perspective, the two pillars were moving in perfect lockstep. He hammered home their ironclad daily bond, accusing keyboard warriors of spinning absolute fiction out of a random 2-second window. Yet the shadows of doubt refused to fade away, mainly because this organization had already been bleeding internal chaos all season long. That decorated dynasty timeline is constantly overshadowed by the endless, exhausting theatrical baggage that drags behind their defensive anchor wherever he steps. Smash that subscribe button if you crave the darkest corners of this narrative, because that silent stare was hardly an isolated catastrophe. Rewind the tape just a few months to December 2025, when another volcanic eruption ripped through the bench, directly targeting the man holding the clipboard. The mastermind coach and his volatile weapon locked horns in an absolutely vicious screaming match right amidst the huddle. The fallout was so toxic that the forward literally stormed into the tunnel, abandoning his squad for 20 straight minutes during a 120-97 victory over the Orlando Magic. Trailing 71-66, The enforcer chucked the ball away and started barking at an official. Sensing the focus slipping away, the head coach immediately stopped the clock. The tension instantly detonated. The strategist and his wild card went for each other's throats right there in the folding chairs. "Yeah, we definitely clashed," the mastermind confessed at the podium later. "I pulled the plug right then because our mental grip was completely unraveling out there." Words were exchanged, and he elected to vanish into the back to ice his temper down. Just pause and let the sheer absurdity of that wash over you. An active competitor, watching his brothers drop a live, competitive dogfight, just decides to ghost the entire arena without a single pulled muscle. He avoided the referee's wrath, yet voluntarily marched away over a petty coaching squabble, even while Moses Moody and an eager assistant desperately scrambled to block his exit. Their frantic efforts to extinguish his raging inferno completely failed. He vanished up the ramp and never returned, later spinning the catastrophic meltdown through his own twisted lens. Emotions ran hot, he justified, arguing a tactical retreat was necessary. In his mind, lingering on the wood would have merely ignited a much deadlier explosion. This definitely was no isolated fluke. For 2 consecutive matchups, Green vanished way before the final buzzer sounded. Officials threw him out merely 8 minutes into Saturday's clash. Come Monday, he barely survived 18 minutes before choosing to walk away completely. 2 consecutive nights, a forced departure, then a voluntary walkout. That constitutes the true Draymond roller coaster. Miraculously, Golden State captured victories in both matchups regardless. His absence sparked a massive comeback, fueled entirely by Stephen Curry draining 6 flawless buckets during the third period. Curry posted 26 huge points, while Butler sank 21. Golden State utterly controlled the fourth quarter, securing a 23-point blowout. Though that fiery dispute between Steph and Draymond entirely poisoned a 2-game hot streak which had finally rescued this floundering roster to a 50-50 standing. Let this sink in. The veteran brawls with his head coach, storms off, and the squad miraculously destroys their opponents by 23 points. Fans everywhere definitely caught onto that glaring reality. Kerr desperately minimized the chaos. Labeling him a champion, the coach insisted they needed his presence. Citing their massive shared history, he also confessed a brutal truth. The ugly ordeal was unfortunate, yet entirely unavoidable. Naturally, the forward launched his own post-game PR rescue mission. Roughly 60 minutes later, he confessed to avoiding Kerr entirely while simultaneously soothing the hungry media scrum. The veteran audaciously championed his on-court impact instead. He fiercely denied feeling any lingering anger whatsoever. Running the point produced exactly 1 mistake, he bragged. Confident in his crisis management, he proudly highlighted his squeaky clean stat line featuring just 1 solitary giveaway. He essentially commanded their entire offensive engine. Unsurprisingly, this fiery duo traded countless verbal blows across 12 exhausting campaigns. Such friction felt routine, yet this undeniable cycle of explosive tantrums followed by immediate squad success became impossible to ignore anymore. That specific toxic cycle completely drives the ongoing drama surrounding the forward and his highly volatile status inside the facility. Comprehending the intense outrage over that viral Steph footage demands a deep dive into the veteran defender's extensive, chaotic track record. We are discussing an athlete positioned at the epicenter of more rivalries, suspensions, and theatrical nonsense than virtually anyone traversing today's association. He literally owns the ultimate crown for expulsions, boasting 20 dismissals across 25 years. That isn't merely some elevated statistic. It stands as an absolute historic milestone. Furthermore, those dismissals expose a terrifying trajectory of intensifying aggression, which basketball executives constantly scramble to penalize. His notorious rap sheet heavily dictated those severe bans handed down throughout the 2023 to 2024 campaign. Association officials constantly emphasize how previous dirty tactics significantly amplify his ongoing punishments. Time to examine those infamous historical flashpoints. Back in 2016, authorities banned him for Game 5 of the championship round. Following that initial exile sparked by a vicious strike against LeBron James, front office executives have relentlessly cited his notorious reputation as a serial rule-breaker when determining the harshness of subsequent sanctions. That pivotal championship ban irreparably shattered the momentum of the entire title chase. Golden State, commanding a 3-1 advantage, surrendered that crucial matchup before completely collapsing against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Countless fans passionately argue that penalty decided everything. Then arrived that infamous clash with Jordan Poole. Surfaced footage originating from a 2022 training session exposed the duo aggressively bickering. The veteran closed the distance, absorbing a shove before unleashing a devastating haymaker against his teammate. A highly publicized apology eventually followed. This violence bypassed any actual match. Instead, it erupted during practice against a rising star, occurring mere months following their shared championship parade. The franchise issued financial penalties while he temporarily vanished, yet the league shockingly handed down 0 formal sanctions. Erupting amid preseason workouts straight off a triumphant title run, the underlying trigger behind their brutal melee eventually leaked, turning a bad situation incredibly toxic. Media uncovered, Poole brutally mocked him, calling him a completely overpriced backpack for number 30. That insult implied a guy making $25 million survived purely on number 30's coattails. Being labeled Steph's overpriced accessory shattered his ego, instantly provoking a terrifyingly violent physical response. The devastating aftermath echoed loudly, instantly fueling rampant whispers regarding a poisoned locker room atmosphere while shattering any illusions of squad brotherhood. Once summer arrived, executives completely exiled Poole to Washington, finalizing a massive blockbuster trade acquiring Chris Paul. That massive trade permanently severed their highly toxic relationship in Northern California forever. The enforcer later expressed genuine regret, though he remains emotionally tangled in that horrific memory involving Jordan Poole today. Broadcasting on his personal podcast, he confessed agonizing over the ordeal, admitting his guilt while fiercely arguing that insulting and shoving another man guarantees a violent consequence. Ultimately, he claimed to grasp both perspectives, suggesting reality hovered somewhere between their clashing viewpoints. Then the 2023 to 2024 campaign unfolded. That November, authorities issued a 5-game ban after he amplified a brawl by placing Minnesota's Rudy Gobert in a chokehold. 5 entire matchups vanished purely for forcefully choking a massive rival. Basketball executives immediately highlighted his notorious rap sheet. Less than 30 days later, right amid the December schedule, history tragically repeated itself. Officials issued an indefinite ban after the veteran violently smacked Phoenix center Jusuf Nurkic directly across his jaw. That malicious strike triggered his 3rd expulsion of the year. Subsequently, the official press release directly attributed the open-ended exile to his extensively documented legacy of intensely hostile, rule-breaking antics. This was not a quick 5 or 10 match timeout. His ban carried absolutely no expiration date. The association essentially threw their hands up, whispering that his return remained a total mystery. 24 hours later, the open-ended exile became cold, hard reality. They finally welcomed him back into the fold on January 6, 2024, following a 12-match banishment. While he was away, headquarters forced him into compulsory on-camera interrogations. Logging into that initial mandatory virtual meeting, he stared down a digital firing squad of 7 imposing figures. Desperate to make sure the star actually attended his therapy sessions, the big boss assembled a specialized oversight committee solely for these monitoring meetings. Kathy Barron and David Weiss held the fort for the association. Meanwhile, General Manager Mike Dunleavy Jr., Rick Celebrini, and David Kelly stepped up to defend the franchise's interests. Chris Arenas from the front office jumped into the fray, right alongside the athlete's powerhouse representative, Rich Paul. They demanded the veteran look inward and battle the dark demons fueling his hardwood outbursts. Silver promised the press that the forward dove headfirst into that grueling gauntlet of therapy and constant surveillance. The tension from that labor dispute hung heavy in the air long after his comeback, perfectly laying the groundwork for the impending chaos. You have to watch the whole film, not just a single frame. When the crowd catches Steph Curry flashing that hollow, empty glare at his teammate, it is never just about a fleeting 10-second clip. That grimace carries the weight of a seemingly endless saga filled with explosive, eyebrow-raising scandals. The world watches a guy infamous for knocking out his own comrade, violently strangling rivals, and deliberately striking adversaries. Throw in screaming matches with his mastermind on the sidelines and literally walking out midway through a battle. That is his legacy. Yet, the narrative is about to take a massive twist, because stripping away all the theatrics, the epic tale binding this controversial enforcer and his legendary franchise ultimately boils down to pure basketball. And the actual hardwood execution weaves a storyline every bit as compelling as the hurricane of locker room madness swirling around him. When a brutal knee blowout benched the twice-crowned league king for the entire month of February, absolutely nobody suffered a harder reality check than his trusted partner in crime. The truth is blindingly obvious now. Whether the superstar sharpshooter steps onto the floor dictates if his enforcer acts as the ultimate weapon or a devastating handicap for the franchise. He is Robin, utterly lost without Batman, a masterful conductor desperately waving a baton at an empty orchestra pit. Here is the brutal reality. Alongside the legendary guard, he is spectacular. Strip the guard away, and his numbers plummet into a terrifying abyss. We are witnessing unprecedented levels of disaster. Minus his legendary sniper, the defensive anchor transforms into an absolute black hole on offense. Throughout February, the squad limped to a pathetic 98.7 offensive mark when he played, compared to a blistering 120-point explosion when he sat. If analytics make your head spin, just imagine bleeding out 21.3 extra points every 100 trips down the floor. Let the sheer horror of that math marinate. The scoring machine hummed along more than 21 points higher the second they glued him to the pine in February 2026. It is a catastrophic gap. Looking at the broader campaign, they plummeted from a god-tier 120.6 points per 100 possessions together, down to a pitiful 100.1 when the veteran flew solo. Stripped of his superstar captain, plunging from the 97th percentile all the way down to the third ranks as a genuinely horrific nosedive unseen elsewhere in professional hoops. Anthony Slater from the Sports Network nailed the description flawlessly, highlighting how the veteran's twilight scoring abilities are hopelessly chained to his legendary teammates' gravity. The insider stressed on the local broadcast that hiding from the ugly truth is impossible whenever the sniper misses time. The cold, hard reality is the roster functions infinitely smoother while he warms the pine. Their mastermind on the sidelines openly confessed to the crisis, falling on his own sword for the forward's catastrophic slump. The commander insisted he had to deploy his veteran much more strategically. The entire battlefield mutates the moment their golden boy vanishes. 14 years of blood and sweat forged an unbreakable telepathy between those two warriors, the mastermind pointed out. That legendary pick and roll was the beating heart of our playbook. And the second that sniper disappears, rival squads rewrite their entire defensive schemes against us. Absolutely nobody suffers more from that tactical shift than our defensive anchor. Yet, when pressured about ripping the veteran out of the starting five, the commander fiercely refused, swearing they remained united even as the terrifying numbers screamed otherwise. A quick glance at the win-loss column during their captain's absences violently echoes this grim reality. Missing their franchise cornerstone, the dynasty has limped to a miserable 8-13 record this campaign. But the real friction lying beneath this dependent sidekick storyline is something far darker. The veteran enforcer is fully aware of the whispers. Wild conspiracies have been infecting the digital sphere for ages, pushing the sinister notion that whenever the superstar gets hurt, his bodyguard miraculously discovers an excuse to miss work too. He has scrolled past the vicious keyboard warriors claiming his sick days coincidentally shadow the point guard's recovery timeline. Just days ago, he grabbed the microphone and tackled the beast head-on, deploying his signature confrontational style to crush the viral gossip. He violently tore the theory to shreds, branding it an absolute fairy tale masquerading as legitimate sports analysis. The masses just adore spinning digital webs of fiction, the champion declared, fiercely shooting down any implication that his minutes were tethered to his superstar teammate. He swatted the notion away, flashing an arrogant grin that screamed case closed. Break out the tiny violins, because reality does not operate that way. Yet, even as the veteran laughed off the keyboard critics, a genuine catastrophic meltdown was tearing through the locker room. The franchise has plummeted into a pitch-black abyss, agonizing through 4 consecutive beatdowns while an epidemic of medical nightmares ravages the roster. Still, the enforcer's pathetic downward spiral is dominating the front pages. Only this time around, his notorious rage is not the culprit. Careless mistakes and incredibly rare defensive blunders have sparked brutal debates regarding his survival on the squad, just as they desperately claw for postseason survival. Pouring absolute gasoline on the inferno, the franchise heavyweight registered a horrifyingly terrible plus-minus output across 4 of their previous 6 battlegrounds. The firebrand actually stepped up to the podium and swallowed his pride for one of those recent bloodbaths. The former lockdown king looked the cameras in the eye and owned the catastrophic failure. Broadcasting his own truth, he openly admitted, "Man, I totally let my squad down during that Chicago bloodbath. I held the reins there, yet chaos hit. We must push on." Now, a massive shadow hangs heavy over the current campaign. that agonizing choice surrounding the Enforcer's looming contract clause. Looking at the cold math, cutting ties makes perfect sense, regardless of the brutal emotional toll it would inflict. His scoring output has plummeted for seasons, and that former legendary defensive dominance simply cannot mask the glaring offensive black hole he creates. Whispers of dealing him actually erupted into serious front office chatter just weeks ago. Initially, shipping him out sounded crazy, yet with boiling tensions surrounding the agitator, exiling him feels like a very real possibility now. Should Golden State dream of raising another banner, defending the Enforcer's roster spot minus his legendary sharpshooting partner turns into an impossible debate. A brutal pill to swallow for the exact warrior who formerly anchored the association's ultimate defense and embodied this empire's soul. Yet, this absolute fragility makes every single glance and silent nod exchanged between the two legends feel incredibly monumental. Therefore, amidst the swirling chaos, that explosive video, head coach clashes, suspensions, and those abysmal box scores, alongside front office murmurs, what truly exists between these two icons? If you actually hear them out, reality completely shatters the juicy narratives peddled by endless online chatter. As millions dissected a brief snapshot from an ugly defeat, spinning wild tales of broken brotherhood, a hidden truth quietly unfolded behind closed doors. Listen to the veteran recount recent messages from his point guard, who typed out, "Stay strong, brother. I realize the darkness feels suffocating today. Yet mark my words, I am returning." That vow from the captain struck a deep chord while the squad desperately treaded water. This dropped on March 6, 2026. Barely 5 suns after that infamous glare amid the Los Angeles massacre. The identical superstar that cyberspace declared finished with his teammate was secretly sending him absolute belief. "He is urging me, push forward. I realize it hurts, yet I swear I am returning," the Enforcer revealed directly to journalist Anthony Slater. Following an epic extra-period triumph over Houston, despite missing key weapons, the outspoken forward unveiled the next chapter to the trusted media source. Slater exposed how that digital message ignited their miraculous perseverance when disaster loomed. Sidelined for 12 matchups by a battered joint, the captain cheered their sheer willpower remotely, firing off a heavily punctuated message reading, "You boys actually pulled that off?" None of that echoes a shattered brotherhood or an exhausted franchise face walking away. It screams of a 10-year blood pact, surviving the routine hurricanes of anger and agony, yet standing completely unbroken. The duo captured 4 titles, relying entirely on the fiery forward to barricade the paint and fuel the franchise's screaming heartbeat. Yet despite hoisting 4 trophies across 10 years side by side, the veteran's scoring ability has plummeted into a terrifying abyss this campaign. The statistics look nothing like his glory days, though the front office has stubbornly rejected any notion of casting him aside. This loyalty burned brighter once Klay Thompson exited, isolating the two as the final remaining titans of a fading empire. The legendary marksman, universally viewed as the sole untouchable asset, confessed to Howard Beck his desire to retire where he originated. "I absolutely cannot envision hunting rings in another uniform." Remaining loyal, the superstar declared, "We possess a shared conviction that we must solve this absolute mess as one unit," he expressed, acutely aware of the violent tectonic shifts rocking their foundation currently. He continued, "The head coach, the veteran, and I discussed this heavily. Our matching contract timelines and how brilliantly our true identity showed last season." The trio of icons continue their dialogue. This magnificent reign is undoubtedly bleeding out. Production plummets and bodies ache, yet their deep-rooted brotherhood survives completely intact. Sources deep within the tunnels insist this precise bond remains the ultimate shield when chaos strikes. The sniper almost never mirrors the Enforcer's deafening roar. Yet the locker room understands his quiet authority pivots the atmosphere instantly, burying any external circus. This dynamic has functioned flawlessly forever. One brings the raging inferno, the other delivers absolute serenity. United, they have sailed through violent scandals for beyond 10 years. That hardly guarantees immortality, however. This historic franchise is hurtling toward the most terrifying summer reconstruction of their entire epoch. With their legendary captain stepping into his ultimate contracted campaign, suffocating expectations demand a championship-caliber squad despite absolutely paralyzed salary cap space. Management is staring down an incredibly deadly high-wire balancing act. Executing this requires flawless precision without a single misstep. Meanwhile, the fiery forward holds a massive contract trigger to pull. The superstar could ruthlessly demand an overhaul. this roster might transform entirely. Yet today, in March 2026, absolute reality remains clear. The two legends constantly speak and fiercely shield one another. The league absolutely did not ban the enforcer for assaulting his own point guard. Such nonsense never occurred. A runaway internet video merely detonated a difficult dialogue that had been simmering backstage for ages. An unavoidable reckoning regarding his plunging production and exhausting rap sheet of chaos. We dive into if this aging core still has teeth, exploring the fallout when a dynasty's twin pillars desperately brace the roof while the floorboards give way underneath them. Hovering near his potential Golden State exit, Draymond delivered a powerful address echoing with the chilling finality of a long goodbye. Shocking the press room, he stepped up to bare his soul about his journey, adding that, should a trade happen, he would accept whatever move benefits the franchise the absolute most. They definitely never did me dirty, he made crystal clear. If someone whispered to me 13 and a half years back that I could ink a contract keeping me rooted here for 13 and a half years, I'd have scribbled my name in a heartbeat. That right there is the essence of Draymond. The same guy who brawls with teammates and screams at his mentor on live broadcast, only to grab the mic and proudly proclaim he regrets absolutely nothing. A fierce enforcer whose legendary bond with Steph faces relentless scrutiny, yet somehow stays unbreakable. No, the officials didn't suspend him for turning on his legendary point guard. Yet, the reality that a mere sideways look sparked those wild rumors perfectly highlights the extreme tension surrounding them today. It paints a vivid picture of this saga's current chapter. Fans heavily dissect every single smirk, nod, and shared breath, fully grasping that their era's closing curtain looms far closer than its opening night ever did. That eventual conclusion will shudder the most triumphant yet explosive brotherhood basketball has ever witnessed. With 4 rings and 4 all-star nods, he boasts 2 Olympic golds alongside 9 unbelievable appearances on the league's all-defensive squad. Celebrated as an elite stopper, he claimed the ultimate defensive crown in 2017. Meanwhile, Steph reigns supreme as the deadliest marksman to ever live. United, they completely transformed hoops. Social media might be eagerly drafting their eulogy, but what if these two legends still hold the pen for an explosive sequel? Be it a glorious grand finale or the start of another ruthless championship push, this saga refuses to simply fade to black.